Morning, Algebra 2 data science students. Today I am going to present to you via video lesson 1.6, which is going to talk about the normal distribution. Now, the normal distribution, we're going to start off by talking about a very famous daytime television show. You might have watched it while you were home sick one day or over the summer, and that would be The Price is Right. So on The Price is Right, there is one of the games, you may have seen it before, called Plinko. Now, Plinko is a game where you can win money by first guessing the price of some household items. Uh, for every item that you guessly correct the value of that item, you win one of these, if you see in the picture, pink chips here that you can use to try and win some money. And what happens is that the contestant will drop the chip at the top of the Plinko board, and all these triangles, the points of the triangles, are pegs that the chip will bounce back and forth, going down the board, eventually getting to one of the dollar values that's at the bottom. And generally, there's contestant will have between 1 and 5 chips that they can go on the board, and the current version in the United States, I believe, has $10,000 in the middle with zeros on either side, and then decreasing dollar values to both sides. And most contestants will drop them in one place or another, they'll move it around. But the question is there a best place on the Plinko board to drop the chips? What's the strategy here for trying to maximize the chances of landing it in the middle there and getting the most money? And mathematics will help us determine what this best strategy is. So, I want to, before we get into the answers to this, I'm going to show you a demonstration, something called a Galton board. Okay? It's named after a mathematician, last name of Galton, that is pretty close to what Plinko is all about. Okay? Instead of discs, balls get dropped at the top, and then there's a 50-50 chance for every peg that they hit, whether the ball goes left or right. Right? And this experiment's going to be giving balls steadily from the top, and each of them is going to go down. And then here at the bottom, we're going to see overall how many land in each of the slots. Now, this is going pretty slow right now, but we can already see that the middle slots are doing better than the ones at the outside. So let's bring the speed up just a little bit, and let's have a whole bunch of balls drop in. As you can see, more and more balls coming in, we can start to see a pattern emerging here. And that pattern is that if we drop it from the top spot here, the middle is going to be where most of the paths go to, and then it starts decreasing the further and further you go out. This is an example of a very common quantitative distribution called the normal distribution. You might have also heard it referred to as a bell curve because it does take a shape like the Liberty Bell or any of the other bells that you might have seen, where it's nice and flat at the sides and then peaks up and goes down. So as we're seeing here, as we're getting towards 200, and I'll hit the pause when it gets to 200. There we go. We have something that is roughly symmetric with an easily seeable center there right at the middle, and that drops off approximately equally on both sides. This is classically what we think of in the normal distribution. So now if we apply this to the idea of Plinko, if the middle slot here is the $10,000 slot, then the strategy you probably want to follow there is to drop those chips right on the center peg to maximize the probability that it will follow a path and get to that most money in the middle there. Players who drop it off to either side are decreasing the possibility that they will get it into the middle, and instead they'll probably get to the sides here where it's worth quite a bit less. All right, so heading over to the notes that you should have a copy of, let's talk through the normal distributions and how we can use it. All right, normal distributions show up many places in the natural world. Okay, Plinko's a good example. Counting the number of heads you get when you flip 10 coins, that's going to have a normal distribution. But then things that are just random in life often show normal distributions. The height of children at certain ages, weights, uh, incomes, housing prices, GPAs. Many of these things follow a normal curve. And when we're talking about the normal curve or the bell curve, this is the general shape that we're looking at. Okay? It gets really flat at the sides, and then all, or not all, but the good majority of the values are going to be here, tightly packed around some center value. Okay? We've already talked about some of the concepts that tie into the normal curve. Okay? It's going to have a center that's the mean value of all of the entries. Now we use this Greek letter mu to represent the mean value of the normal curve. And then we're going to introduce this new idea of a standard deviation, which uses the Greek letter sigma, which looks like an O with a little wisp there at the top. Mu looks like an M. The standard deviation in a normal curve puts set guidelines for where we expect certain percentages of all the values to lie. Okay? So remember, just like we had quartiles when we were looking at the box plot that told us where each 25% would be, the standard deviation is going to mark out certain percentages over the entire normal curve. And no matter what you're measuring, if it follows this normal distribution, those percentages are going to be highly accurate and are generally going to be correct for looking at the percentage of values that are between uh, certain mile markers there. Okay, so let's talk about this rule, because there is a special rule that sets out the percentage between certain standard deviations. We call this the empirical rule. Right? You might hear me also refer to it as the 68, 95, 99.7 rule, or sometimes people call it the 3 sigma rule. And it is a roadmap for the normal curve that tells you the percentage of values that you should expect at one standard deviation. So this intersections one standard deviation on either side of the mean. Two standard deviations. That's the next lighter teal spot. That's going to be the mean plus and minus 2 standard deviations on each side. And then finally, 3 standard deviations on each side. That's going to be our last area there. And the 68, 95, 99.7 part of the rule comes from the fact that within one standard deviation is 68% of all values. Within 2 standard deviations is 95% of all the values. And within 3 standard deviations is 99.7% of the values. So that means that out here at the end, past 3 standard deviations above and below, only 0.3% of all values should be out there. Now, what we're going to need to use this tool will be two facts about a normal distribution. One of them is going to be the mean, the value at the center, and one of them is going to be the standard deviation. And that's going to tell us how far away each of these signposts is going to be from the mean. So here on the curve that we're looking at right now, it's got a mean value of 1150, and the standard deviations are 150 each. So between the values of 1000 and 1300, which is one standard deviation below the mean and one standard deviation above the mean, we're going to find 68% of all of our values. That's over 2/3 of everything in this distribution is going to be within one standard deviation. Between 850 and 1450 is going to be 95%, and between 700 and 1600 will be 99.7%. Almost, but not quite everything will be within 3 standard deviations. All right, so let's look at how we could use this rule to help us figure out the answers to some problems. Okay, so here's an example, another example. If we had a standard deviation of 100, and this is for IQ scores, standard deviation of 100, or I'm sorry, a mean of 100 and a standard deviation of 15, we could use the empirical rule, and that's going to tell us that 68% of the people are going to be between 85 and 115. 95% will be somewhere between 70 and 130, and almost everybody, 99.7%, will be somewhere between 55 and 45. So let's talk about exactly how we are going to solve these problems. Here again, I have a diagram that's showing us the percentage that would be between any of these major lines. They're all going to be marked off as either the mean or the mean plus or minus a certain number of standard deviation. So as we're doing a problem, and let's go ahead into this example, step one is going to be that we're going to mark at the mean what the mean value is going to be. So here, the mean is 16, and then I'm going to use the standard deviation to mark what each line after that's going to be. So mu plus sigma, or the mean plus one standard deviation, will be 18. 20 is going to be out here, and 22 is going to be here at 3 standard deviations. Then I'll go the other direction down to minus 3 standard deviations. So 14, 12, and 10. And now if I want to figure out what percentage of my value should be between any two of these values, I'm just going to add the percentages that correspond to the area between the two lines. All right, so between 14 and 18 are going to be these two intersections. That's going to be 34 plus 34, or 68%. Right, those are the markers for plus one standard deviation and minus one standard deviation. Here at 12 and 20, well, that's going to be 2 standard deviations above to 2 standard deviations below. From the empirical rule, we know that that's going to be 95%. Right? And if I added 13.5 and 34 and 34 and 13.5, I'd get to 95%. All right, 16 to 20. Now we're going to get into an example that's not symmetric here. And between 16 and 20, we're going to have these two areas. So I'm going to have to go ahead and add 34 and 13.5, and that's going to get me 47.5. Okay, so just by adding up all the percentages between the two numbers, we can figure out what the total percentages would be between two numbers. All right, last example here, going between 12 and 18. So that's going to be all three of these sections here. Okay, so that's going to be 34 plus 34, which is 68, plus another 13.5. So that should get us up to 81.5% will be between those two values. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to label the marker lines here, right? Each of our intervals here, each of our standard deviations, and then use those points to add the total area between the two values. Now you're going to have some practice problems to do. Give those all a go. And if you have any questions, you can ask a teacher who's in the room or come back to class tomorrow and ask us about the questions there.